Hello, everyone. Welcome to DNA's September 2025 webinar. Can't believe we're here already. Very important topic, campaign page design secrets that convert investors. Arguably the most important metric when analyzing the performance of a digital capital raise. Reg CF, Regulation 8 Plus, Reg D is the conversion rate. If it's a 1%, if it's a 2%, if it's a 3 to 5%, these are astronomically different worlds of results, even warranting whether a campaign continues or not, both with monetary and human capital. It's what determines whether an issuer is successful or not. So what's put into that offering page, the team, the product, the industry growth, all of the different elements that play a role in determining whether an investor is going to move forward or not is really where you should be focusing on when preparing to launch one of these. I'm joined here by Brendan, our creative director, has worked on hundreds of these capital raises. Many of the top issuers to date worked with Brendan directly, and we're going to get into the weeds. We're going in depth today to talk about offering pages.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. And like you said, it's your digital storefront, right? It's your elevator pitch. You can kind of think of it, I know pitch decks are really popular and common, and you should definitely have one. And this is kind of your digital online version of your pitch deck, right? Doesn't mean that you're copying and pasting things directly from your pitch deck in. You can definitely, mix and match and have some things that are the same. But you're really telling your story and really applying best, website best practices, right? Even if you're not self-hosting, if you're on a specific portal, they usually have a certain type of layout. You can still find ways to tell your story in intriguing ways to get people to, actually read through the whole page. A lot of times people will bounce. Maybe they just see the top, maybe they scroll a little bit, and they're not really getting into it. But, we have a lot of tips and tricks that you can do to kind of keep people engaged, keep people coming back, even if they've seen it, maybe they'll come back at a later point, check it out, and eventually convert and invest.
Well said. Well said. You make it sound pretty easy, actually. Just kidding. It's not easy. When we look at Reg CF campaigns, it's only 7% in 2024 and 2023. Separate research studies, so only 7% hit $1 million or more. So it's why we do this content. We want to see a higher success rate industry-wide. Happy to say we worked with many of those issuers. Have worked on, if you don't know DNA, we usually have a page talking about us here. Have worked on over 500 investor marketing campaigns. That spreads across Reg CF, Reg D, Regulation 8 Plus. Those of you not familiar, Reg CF is for both retail and accredited. You can raise up to $5 million. 75 million on a Regulation 8 Plus. Reg D 506C, you can solicit accredited investors only. So high net worth, high household income audiences, typically a higher minimum investment. But I've worked on a high volume of these. It's not just our thoughts and ideas towards how to market as much as the findings after having worked on that volume. Again, including many of the top Regulation 8 Plus campaigns this year, top Reg CFs, groups that have raised $5 million. That's what's behind this. As emphasized, your campaign page could be the difference between raising millions or falling short. This is your pitch presentation. This is set up to do the selling for you. Your prospective investors may never speak with you or someone on your team directly. But if they get to that offering page, they need to be provided with enough information in an enrolling enough fashion to have them put in their personal and financial information to purchase shares so that they are along for the ride with you. Whatever exit strategy you have living in your offering page is what they're playing for together. In some cases, they just want to be a shareholder in your vertical and love what you're doing as a team and with your product, but they're along for that same ride with you. So, Brendan, your page is the face of your raise. Is that true?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you think about it, you always want to put your best foot forward, right? So you can have the most amazing product, you can cure cancer, but if your page is just tons of text. Maybe it's boring. Maybe you're using too much, verbiage or, dialect and like things that, people would only know if you're in that specific industry, right? You have to think about it, especially for Reg CF. These are all retail investors. So maybe they haven't invested before, maybe they're just really into what you're talking about, right? And, they want to learn more, get interested, maybe be a part of it. And that's, I think, a huge part of these retail races is tapping into that emotional aspect, getting people to join, not just because of the amazing technology, service, product that you've created, but that they're really following you. They're following the CEO, the origin story, your why, right? So if, that's why your page is so important. If you're driving traffic there from ads, word of mouth, emails, however you're getting traffic to your page, everyone's going to go there eventually to invest, right? And they're going to see it. So you definitely want to put that time in, dedicate, the hours working with your team, working with maybe other investors to get their opinion on it, but really trying to do as much as you can to fine tune this so that when you do go live, you can make the most out of your marketing budgets and you can, have the highest possible return on your marketing spend.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What are we looking at to the right here?
So on typically on a lot of these raises, you'll see some sort of graphic that shows, the basic information for your raise, right? So like your share price, how much you've raised, maybe overall. This one says total on net capital. So obviously this has been like multiple raises on net capital and then total this round. This can depend the layout on the platform. Um, Recently, I've seen more platforms including kind of like the total overall raised so that you're highlighting a bigger number. Later, we'll show some examples where you guys can see that actually in action right now. But it's a great spot to show people momentum, right, in your traction. Like, hey, we've already raised $10 million from the crowd, right? So it's already kind of showing, hey, this is a great opportunity. People already believe in us. Sometimes they'll show X amount of investors, which I think can be great as well, right? You don't typically want to be maybe like the first 10 investors, right? But if you see 1,000 people investing in it, then you're like, hey, there's a ton of people here that believe in what we're doing, believe in our mission. Maybe I should get on. Maybe it is really that good of a deal, right? So those kinds of things really do make an impact. I know sometimes you will see valuation here, which I think definitely is important. Not always like doesn't always determine everything, but definitely can help show people the potential for your business, right? Without even touching on the market or anything like that, it already shows the potential you have, how far you've gone, and how big of an impact you can really have in your industry. So this can be a great place. I mean, like I said, it's on every single typically portal, so you'll see this some sort of thing, but it does help give people kind of like an overview, a quick, okay, these are the numbers, right? This is what I'm looking at. Um, and then with this, you're really trying to tell your story, right? So I know we already talked about it, but visitors do decide within seconds if they're going to stay or leave. That top part of your, above the fold. So like once you load the page, that section is so important. So really finding ways that you can communicate your idea so that people know exactly what you do, maybe some traction or impact right in that first section. If I go to a page and I can't tell what a company does, it reduces my, I think, confidence, right? I'm just like not sure. I'm like, oh, maybe they don't know how to speak about themselves really well, or it's too confusing. I'm just, it's not the investment for me, right? So kind of think about these things, right? You want to make sure, even if someone's coming from an ad or somewhere else on the web, that once they go to your page, they know what you're doing, why this raise is so important, and how you can make that big impact with your value proposition.
And what you're talking about is often a subconscious mental process. Bottom line, you're not ready to put an average of $1,500 in that moment.
Mhm.
Maybe you tell yourself you're going to come back. Maybe you just move on to the next thing. You get distracted. Uh, Part of what I like about this page as well is we're not showing you the visual elements. This isn't the pitch video. This isn't the hero text or the social proof or the smiling pictures of the founders. This is how much has been raised and when is the campaign closing. And you're right, other platforms show other types of metrics as well. In fact, if you hover over the I information bubble on many of these offering pages, it'll show little breakdowns of, total raise this round, but this much off of the platform, this much off the on the platform. As an investor, you should definitely analyze that. If it's 5 million, but 104,000 raised on the platform, you got to ask yourself why. But this first bullet, decide within seconds. They have those different types of stats for uh, meeting your wife, your husband. You knew within seconds whether you're going to go on a date with them or not. Or so many of these important decisions that we make in life. It's a matter of seconds that we're primed to at least make a decision. So what we're saying here is whether to stay or leave within seconds. You hear the same thing as a marketer for video. Hey, within 3 seconds, if you don't have that hook, they're gone. Oftentimes, this is what a prospective investor looks at in those first few seconds. How much has been raised? When's the closing date? It's important to understand that because half of the campaigns, I mentioned 7% raise a million or more, half of them don't pass 110K on a Reg CF. Last year for Regulation A Plus, as published earlier this year by King's Crowd, it was 1.7 million, which meant half the issuers could have done a Reg CF and didn't have to go through that whole filing process. Even the average, as published at the beginning of the year, was 6.5 million, and that's taking into account $75 million rounds, and the average is a lot different than the median. There was only about 40 Regulation A Plus campaigns last year in general, so each one affects the average. If you are showing over 100K, it looks radically different than if you say, hey, we're going to transform our industry, disrupt the vertical. We've raised $6,000 or we've raised $48,000. It doesn't inspire confidence. Each platform has its own way of shielding these campaigns from investors. For WeFunder, it's 50K. For Start Engine, it's 124, 125 that you have to raise before they start promoting you to their audience. In some cases, even in very visible sections of the site. So this plays a role in the page design. It's then, going back to Brendan's points of a complete story, product milestones, opportunity. There has to be enough there for the audience to pass the glance test and then go in for more. And poorly designed page, I mean, it's something that could directly affect whether a campaign does well or not. Even if it does marginally well, you ask what could have been changed so that it really crushes. This goes over some of the stats that I went over before. There are some misleading numbers in there. So King's Crowd shows about 2/3 of Reg CF campaigns hit their funding goals, but that's really the minimum, not the maximum. So whatever you put in as a minimum, and you're not able to take funds until you hit that minimum. Page quality makes the difference there. I mentioned the median raise. So 114 for 2024, more of 110 for historical. But 368 was the average, taking into account the 90 some odd, 7-figure campaigns and $5 million, $4.8 million higher campaigns. Bottom line, poorly designed page costs your campaign, trust, momentum, funding. So much of it is on social dynamics. Brendan, do you want to speak to that at all, and how page design, how creative as a whole changes, how it's perceived differently as an issuer hits higher benchmarks in terms of what their campaign has done?
hmm Yeah, I mean, benchmarks like you're saying, these milestones, numbers, being able to hit, certain levels, getting to the 100K level definitely does make a difference. And, your creative and the visual layout of your page can definitely help with that, right? You want to make sure that it looks professional, looks clean, is easily readable and scannable. I know we'll get into a little bit more of these, tips and things later. But the metrics do matter, and it definitely shows like it's going to take a lot of work, right? You can't just expect to put your page up, copy your pitch deck over, put it up, and hope that people are gonna, millions of people are gonna come find this page and invest. It really does take a lot more effort than that on the marketing side as well. Marketing, and then things that the CEO and the team are doing outside of that, whether that's conferences, speaking with investor groups, alumni groups, things like that. But the design is just so important, and I think if you can find a way to get your idea across in a way that, both looks good and is really easily understandable is, that sweet spot that can help people A, understand what you're doing, and then B, know really where you're going to take this in the future, right? Because you could have done something really cool, but people also want to know, hey, like, how is this, going to be changing the industry, going to be transforming, the norm of what we're currently doing? And visuals can really do that. So, like you were saying, really working on your page and then your video as well, which is going to be on that page. And then, investing in some sort of visuals, whether that's actual images, if you do have, something physical that you can take images of, or, creating things, right? Finding ways that you can, I know there's tons of AI tools right now. They're not always the best and perfect for what you're trying to do, but, play around with it, see what you can generate, and, really take the time to put the work into your creative. You want to make sure that, you know that your company is amazing and that you guys are doing something great. So why not show everyone else that too?
I like the way you say it, Brendan. And yes, the page really does need to be that centralized location. So even as you're talking about what audiences are finding afterwards, what can we uh, put into the portal updates so that we are talking about that momentum. It's all there, and that it's again the centralized location. So common mistakes that kill conversions, fatal mistakes backed by data. Uh, Pages with over 50% text versus visuals see 40% lower engagement. I actually haven't heard the stat broken down in that fashion until we put this presentation together. But with over 50% text versus visuals, it's got to pass that glance test. It's got to be captivating. It's got to take audiences from one section of the page to the next, especially looking at valuations. You got a 10 million, $20 million valuation, 50, 100 higher. Got to play the part. It can feel inconsistent if it's a bunch of text, heavy, a heavy read. It's difficult for an audience to try to get through everything versus speaking in a very intelligent fashion. I mean, if you look at the top brands, if you look at their websites, if you look at their commercials, if you look at their assets, it's very light. Why use more words? It's what you need to be asking for every sentence in there. And what can be communicated visually should be explored. So videos without clear investment messaging lose 60% of viewers by minute 2. We get asked about video length. Sure, 2.5 minutes, 5 minutes on a pitch video, but you can see without messaging, if it's just the founder speaking, you're going to be losing some of the audience. Missing mobile optimization costs 30% of potential investors. No one likes getting to a page and the words are cut off or the visuals aren't there. It just feels sloppy, unprofessional, doubtful that it's a $20 million company at that point, particularly if you don't have a lot raised. No social proof reduces trust scores by 45%. You can always use more social proof. It may need to be layered into your offering page properly, but I don't typically say things such as too much social proof, too much third-party validation. There's too many people saying great things about this offering. We get it. No, the more publishers you're able to show, the more conferences that your team has spoken at, the more customer client testimonials, the more strategic partners, the more trust. Again, you're playing for the crowd effect. If you're not able to show it in numbers, if you're not able to say, hey, we've raised over $2 million from over 2,000 investors, maybe you overdo it with the social proof. The 2000, I was mentioning this on a consulting call right before this. I remember going into theme parks as a kid. I actually grew up by one, so I go ride these roller coasters all the time. You walk into the park, it says, hey, this ride's got a 3-hour wait. If you've never been to the park before, okay, That's probably one of the good rides. Maybe it's just new, but everyone wants to be on that. Maybe we get a fast pass over there. Maybe we try to ride that at the end of the day once the lines become shorter. Maybe we show up early tomorrow and within 15 minutes of opening, we walk right onto the ride. But that's the good one. That's the one everyone wants. You're able to do that with your investor count and how much capital has been raised. And that's why really the top 10% of investors get all the investments. But you could also convey it with social proof. You could talk about how many customers, how many clients you have, your audience size. You could talk about all these different metrics that demonstrate something similar. And I could spend a whole hour speaking about that. That's why the top brands are where they're at. It's how you obtain digital market share. Even more so on these Reg CF and Regulation A Plus campaigns. Also, unclear value propositions increase bounce rate by 70%, meaning people are not getting to the next page. Generic call to actions reduce click-through rates by 25%. Be very personalized with your audience. Brendan, I feel like I got the good page here going through all these stats. You want to add to some of these notes and what you see from the creative side?
Yeah, I mean, I can mention a couple of them. Yeah, so videos without clear investment messaging lose 60%. Definitely, that number makes sense to me. Especially for these raise pages, it's not just like a company overview page, right? You're really trying to push the investment opportunity. And, for retail investors, you might be clicking through an ad. Maybe it says invest on it, but even if it doesn't, they click through, they get to the page. You just really want to make it clear that they know what they're getting into, right? So, you're hitting them with the problem, how you're addressing that, the market, all those things, try to really sum up as much as you can in that first 30 seconds to a minute, so that even if people do bounce after the minute or 2 minutes, they have the gist of it, right? If you're doing your whole video and then the last 15 seconds, you're just talking about the investment opportunity, it might be a little bit too late to have captured those people's attention. So, move that verbiage towards the front. You can always still tell your story and, find fun, creative ways to, have fun, make jokes, or, shed light onto what you're doing. But definitely those first at least 30 seconds to a minute, try to keep it a little bit more investor focused. I know definitely addressing the problem, and it can be really easy to talk about your product, for 5, 10 minutes. I know, especially if, you're the founder, the CEO. I know you're really passionate about it, and people that does come across, right? People want to see that passion, that excitement for what you're doing. But just make sure that you're talking about the investment as well. That can easily get lost, especially with these, typically shorter videos. It can be up to 5 minutes. We usually say, I think, between like maybe 2.5 to 3.5 minutes. You can also typically add videos on your page as well, whether you're linking them or embedding them for people to check out. So, if you already have a great overview video, throw that down there. If you have investor testimonials, for social proof, like we're talking about, throw those on your page. They're great, just extra assets, right? And video is one of the most consumed pieces of content. So people might scroll through your page, they see a video, they might be like, hey, let me check it out. And there's other ways too you can play with it. You can play with GIFs and things, if you don't want a video. But definitely focusing on that video with that investment opportunity. And then if I look on here as well, I'll just touch on one more. So just one more time on social proof. Like Jason said, you can never have enough, really. And it can be talking about your traction. So like you said, how much you've raised, how many investors you have. It can be partnerships, which I think have really pushed the needle and moved the needle in a lot of our bigger campaigns. It can be really hard if you have, months long campaigns, 6, 7, 8 months long, and you're not continuously getting new traction and milestones, right? So the companies, that we've worked with that have been able to get those partnerships have really been able to find a new boost and lift in investments based off of those things, right? People want to see traction, see that you're moving. That's why we always say it's so important to keep your investors updated, whether that's through email or portal updates. But again, always trying to find new ways to build upon social proof. The more people that talk about you, the better, and you can never really truly have enough.
Never enough. Know your investors and speak their language. As you're speaking about this, Brendan, it's like, okay,
Hmm.
how many groups have we worked with? Over 500. How many groups have we spoken to? Thousands that look at their investors as one persona. In
Mhm.
some cases, a few people. But know your investors and speak their language. That old adage, sell me this pen, right? You really have to understand who you're selling. Reg CF campaign, this is a e-commerce initiative for stock in your company. You need to understand all the different audiences that you're going to drive through. It may be, 50,000 people, 50,000 visits per $1 million, $2 million, somewhere in there raised. So, who are those 50,000 people? How are you speaking to them? How are you speaking to them on the offering page that everyone accesses? How are you speaking to them in the advertising messaging and the content that they're seeing off-site, off-offering page, if you will? They're not VCs who understand complex terms and financial models. Maybe a percentage of them are, but all of them? No. Even on a Reg D campaign. You're looking at accredited investors, individuals who have made over 200K on the past two W2 years and anticipated for the third, I believe, over $1 million net worth outside of their primary home. A lot of people fit into that category, well over 24 million in the US alone. So you picture 100,000 people in a stadium and they're all very different. 24 million? Radically different. So, how do you break down those audience personas and how you're speaking to them? They need education wrapped in excitement. Excitement can mean many different things, but the action that follows is how we want to measure it. It's not just a smile. It could be, excited in a good way, in a bad way. It can be getting from one page to the next, but they're basically looking for clear answers as to what does this company do? Why should I invest? I mean, mention the word VC. The larger the investor, the more deal flow. It's a good way to look at it. They're pitched right and left if they're in accredited investor lists. Even retail audiences, they click on an ad to see a start engine campaign. They're going to get served ads for a lot of other start engine campaigns. It's just how the ad platform algorithms work. What makes your offering stand out more? Why would an investor, why would that individual want to move forward, purchase shares in your company than any other number of opportunities that come across their desk or across their feeds is a good way to say it. The average investor check rose 26% from $1,190 to $1,500 in 2024. They're serious but cautious. And age 30 to 49 comprise 49.7% equity crowdfunding investors. This is per data on King's Crowd. So that's different than the gold IRA investor, where over 65, very specific political views. I mean, you really want to understand who these audiences are, where they get their news, which is an important thing here in 2025. What types of influencers, thought leaders, streamers they're following. How do they move forward on other products? The better you can comprehend this, the more likely you are to create an offering page and marketing traffic sources into it, as well as content marketing off of it that carry a high conversion rate. Brendan, how do you craft a tagline that hooks instantly?
So, I mean, it's like what we talked about, right? Taking all of the information that you have about your company and then, squishing it into one tagline or phrase, which definitely is not always the easiest thing. I know Jason a lot of times will mention I think it's, was it 3-3-1 method, where you get like three sentences or no, 3-1-3. So three sentences to one sentence to three words. So obviously right now, like the tagline doesn't have to be that short, but you want to kind of keep that sentiment, top of mind, right? So finding ways to simplify, I always think of something I learned in high school, which is crazy that I still remember this, but brevity and clarity, right? You want to keep it as short and sweet as you can, still being super clear and, peop still giving people information. So this one right here by Blackout Coffee, from a garage to over 16 million. You helped us get here. So, does it say exactly what they do? Not necessarily, but I think it is fun and it definitely pulls you in, right? This is a headline that I would read and I'd be like, oh, like, wow, that's pretty cool. They were able to take their company from, just the regular garage, get it to 16 million, maybe where have they gone from here? So I think this still can definitely work. What I do like about it is that they were able to highlight one of their main pieces of traction, right? Like one of their milestones, getting to over 16 million. I'm assuming this is revenue, and that's huge for any company, right? So it's not just, oh, like, hey, like, we have this coffee shop and, we have like this new crazy coffee, right? It's not necessarily saying that, but they're really speaking to what they've done so far, which I think is why this can be effective. Even, within the copy, the description here, you can see a little bit more in terms of highlighting stats and numbers, which definitely helps and gives more context here. But I feel like this is nice. It gets you engaged. It makes me feel like, they're like, oh, like I helped them get here, or, like people, like the crowd, right? Help them reach this new plateau, which I think for them definitely helped them get them to the next level. But there's lots of ways you can do this. I do love adding in lots of, if you can, maybe some sort of metric or stat. It definitely helps. A lot of times I'll see people mention the market, like, for cancer, we're helping, millions of people around the world, right? Of course, it's better if you can have an exact number, right? It's like, like we're helping hundreds of millions of people around the world, become cancer free, right? That's a lot more impactful than just saying, oh, like, our new technology helps people become cancer free. So adding some sort of stat definitely can help if you don't have revenue or something else that you can tangibly attach, or maybe it's not the strongest numbers quite yet. You can always talk about the market. It could be, talking about like a brand, like this Forbes sponsored company is taking over the coffee industry, so adding in some sort of social proof even here. Of course, I would like it to be like a little bit more. I know exactly what they're doing. Blackout Coffee, I can kind of know it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Some sort of coffee company. I'm sure it can go a couple different ways, but depending on what you do, and you can definitely put that in the description, right? Like we were saying, you want people to know exactly what you're doing. So this small description here is a great spot that you can get more into your value proposition, right? And, go into a little bit more detail, but still keeping it, as we were saying, in relatable language that, people are going to understand. It's not too complex, but that they're going to be able to, check it out and, continue from there, know what you guys do. We want them to go to your page, read this first section, and then even if they bounce immediately, later that day, the next day, they can remember what you guys are doing, right? I think that's a huge sign of a successful page is if somebody can just go there, be on it even for 5, 10 seconds, leave, and then still remember what you do. And those kinds of things, you see more retargeting ads in the future, you see press releases, other things from this company, you're like, oh, like I know who those guys are. That's pretty cool. Like they're getting mentioned these places, I'm seeing them more around. So that's what you can do to definitely help people to continue to, check out your page, invest, reinvest, all those things.
I love that. Having the audience be able to repeat what was on your offering page the day after they read it. Daunting. I mean, we see thousands of advertisements a day, especially taking into account every logo you can see. Picture all the logos that are in your room or in your eyesight right now. It's then, on top of all of the web pages and the emails and the social pages that we see on a daily basis. Was it over 150 TikTok videos per session? I mean, it's just how do you stand out among that? And goes back to the thought that less is more in terms of text. I can remember from a garage to over 16 million. I don't know if I can remember that whole paragraph below. Maybe. And if so, the numbers are probably the guidelines for me. Okay, 64,000 square foot facility. I mean, I picture that. It's measurable. Second raise. Now they're doing a new one. Okay. This is a longer intro paragraph, by the way, and it's got a repetitive number from a garage over 16 million, then saying 16 million again. There's definitely ways to optimize. It's not to say this one's perfect, as much as to show what a hook looks like. How to craft your tagline, the 313 method. Brennan's already gone through this. 313 method, that's Ryan Foland, communications expert for TED Talks. And it's got an example here with an AI-powered fitness tracking app. 3 sentences, 1 sentence, 3 words. So we're going to do it. Our company creates artificial intelligence software that helps people track their fitness goals more effectively. Okay. We use machine learning to provide personalized workout recommendations and nutrition advice. All right. Our platform connects users with certified trainers for real-time coaching support. Okay. So we then look at that as 1 sentence, and pulling from the 3 sentences have AI-powered fitness platform that provides personalized workouts and connects users with certified trainers. All right. To me, that's far more powerful than the 3 sentences. It's kind of painful to hear me go through each one of those sentences, right? To be able to break it down in one, not only streamlines it, the consumption is going to be much higher if we were to look at, completion rates. I feel like I have an easier time repeating it. That's the whole thing for me, is how do I get the audience not only to understand a concept, but to be able to repeat it and act as ambassadors, peer-to-peer marketers, if you will, to their first degree networks. And then as 3 words, AI fitness coach. Does it say the same thing? AI-powered fitness platform that provides personalized workouts and connects users with certified trainers. Well, AI fitness coach definitely speaks to that. Maybe not the connecting to certified trainers aspect, but you could see, all right, we could base it on these 3 words and figure out places to elaborate further about the network. Does it say our company creates artificial intelligence software that helps people track their fitness goals more effectively? See how much this really is. We use machine learning to provide personalized workout recommendations and nutrition advice. Coach speaks to all that. Our platform connects users with certified trainers for real-time coaching support. So I'll speak with founders that tell me, hey, you don't know everything we had to do to create this product. We need these 3 sentences to explain what we do. We need all of this text. We need a text-heavy page. We're trying to reach investors. When really the 1 sentence, the 3 words perhaps, can do a stronger job at it. And even just going through the exercise for your company would set you up to be able to convey your value prop in far fewer words. I can remember a few words. AI fitness coach. I go to the next page, I go to the past page. I can tell you what it is. You ask me to repeat that sentence, you're gonna get my version of it at best. You ask me to repeat 3 sentences, you're probably gonna see me struggle trying to remember what those 3 sentences were. That's the power in this. You can have someone remember 3 words. It is research backing this. So I would definitely invite everyone to do the 313 method on their own and to use less messaging in their copy as a whole. And treat your audience as if they're smart, because they are, at least a good percentage of them. Don't reuse numbers, don't reuse words, try to be original all the way through. You have such a small blip of time from them. And at best, you're going to get 2% of them to move forward. So treat them in a way that they're more likely to become a shareholder alongside you. Brennan, what do we have going on this page?
So now we're getting a little bit more. I think this is typically this is more about the campaign video. So the video that's going to be at the top of your page. Not every single crowdfunding campaign needs one, but I would say 99% of the top campaigns, or the ones that, have done a lot better to reach their goals, have a campaign video. Um, I would say you don't need one if you have already an audience of like hundreds of millions of people that, already know what you do. But, I would definitely recommend making a video. They don't need to be these Hollywood production, like feature films. We're not creating, like cinema for the Sundance Festival. You can definitely work on it to make it, high quality and polished. And, that definitely shows, kind of like we were saying, put your best foot forward. You want to make sure that you're representing your company in a way that, you're imagining it in your head. But, as we brought on before, first 30 seconds, really get into that investment opportunity. So talking about, you can introduce yourself. I actually don't think introducing yourself right at the beginning is 100% necessary. I think it's stronger if you can have some sort of hook, like Jason was talking about, whether that's talking about the problem, like you could be like, 80% of homes are in fear of extreme weather, or something like that, right? Then you're like, oh, that's super important, so then you can talk about your solution and the investment opportunity, right? But trying to get all these kinds of things in can be difficult, but really just thinking about what's the strongest hook, right? So whether that's the problem you're addressing, what you guys have done so far, so definitely play around with it. There's no set in stone way to do this, but definitely find something that will grab people within those first, 10-15 seconds. And then throughout that first minute, continue to elaborate on that from there, right? You want to make sure that the most important thing in your video is said at the beginning. So even if they leave after 10, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, they already heard the most important part, right? That you're having an investment opportunity, you're doing XYZ, and this is how you're doing it. You know, and going into kind of like tone, keep it conversational, not corporate. You can definitely, I think, you can still be corporate, right? But I think it's more about how you're coming across. You want to definitely show you're excited, that you're passionate. If you're sitting and it just feels really dry, like you're just reading off a script, it can kind of take away from some of that emotion. And when people invest in people, if they see that you really believe in this and this is something that, is the next thing, right? For the next generation product, service, then, show that, right? Express that yourself. Or, whether it's within visuals or graphics, it's great to see the product or service in action. So if you have an app, being able to see, the app in action, like some of the features, a product showing, being actually able to see like boxable. I think what they do so great is they have so many videos and pieces of content of the house folding and unfolding. And it's such a cool thing to see. And, people love seeing that kind of stuff. So examples of the actual real life product, if you have it. And yeah, leading with emotion, definitely. People do invest with emotion. They want to know that this is something that's impactful, right? People do like to invest in things that do good for for the planet, right? So, whether that's environmental, in the health sector space, people, do definitely have certain ties to things. And if you can tap into that, especially if you've done some research and strategy on your market, it can definitely help with your messaging. And, we were talking about that before on, speaking to your investors, right? So you're also speaking to them, in your video as well, whether that's within the shots that you're getting, the B-roll, the overlays, all that kind of stuff, all really can come together into this pitch video and, give people the 1-2 minute quick. This is my raise page in a video almost, right? So even if, like you said, they don't go through the page, but they watch the video, they'll leave knowing exactly what you do and they'll remember you, right? That's the main point of all this, right? So that they remember what you do, who you are, and that, you're a cool company, that this could be the future.
You are a cool company. This can be the future. And you want to be able to show it visually. You want to hook them, give them the value proposition, and then open up about your story versus just going into your story. And remember something that Brendan says right and left, you're selling the investment opportunity. You're not selling your product, not for this initiative. We'll see videos where the entire video is talking about the product, and then you can learn more about investing below. Now's your chance to connect with the audience. So I mentioned the glance test earlier. You want to structure your page for easy scanning. So that hero section with tagline and video, as Brendan is going into detail about, that is above the fold, as we would say. Picture a newspaper, it's above the fold. You don't have to open it up. It's a web page. You don't have to scroll down to be able to see anything. Only a small percentage of the audience is going to get to the whole page. So have what is most important at the beginning. As Brendan was saying, if they watch the video but nothing else, I like to think of it as the hero text needs to explain to audiences exactly why they're there. If they have amnesia and don't remember how they got there, that hero text, the text that's visible above the fold, like the example we saw for the coffee company, needs to tell them exactly why they're there. Top reasons to invest: don't put the hard work on your audience. Create the narrative that they can live into. We could see an example of this to the right. Reasons to invest. These are pretty long. At the same time, our product's in a bunch of stores. Looks like there's some growth, especially over the past 52 weeks. Distribution with retailers like Walmart, Albertsons, some other ones. Next bullet, 12.1 million total revenue last year. Okay, meaningful growth. Farmer Coffee ranks in the top 5 fastest growing brands in the category. All right, you're kind of getting multiple points in each point here, but at the same time, we're covering a lot of ground. Good coffee joke, I guess. Growing coffee category with a proprietary spirit-infused coffee and premium instant coffee with national distribution. So why do they want me to invest? Because they're in a lot of stores and seeing a lot of growth, including top retail distribution partners. Strong amount of revenue, being featured as one of the top 5 coffee companies, and a growing category. So they're doing spirits, they're doing instant coffee. It's not just one product, they're evolving past that. All right, I'll ask you, is that enough information to invest from there? Is it stronger than what you have on your offering page? If you're building an offering page, what can you put into these bullets so that it's even more of a hard sell, even more difficult to say no to? You want the audience to think if they don't participate, they're going to look back at a later point and be disappointed that they didn't move forward. So I like how there's 3 bullets here. Some of the offering pages, there's 5, there's 7, there's 10. It's like, okay, how's anyone going to remember all of that? I do think some of these are a little long, but at the same time, they're multiple selling points inside the same bullet. I really like that. And this is obviously a page that's working. So it's a great one to point at. It's also a product that I'm a big fan of. Big in the category, big in supporting fire departments. I've worked on similar types of products in years past that have done well. Problem you're solving, okay, not going to apply to every company, but at the same time, this is where you get to explain your why. There were other coffee brands out there. We felt like they were missing the mark. They weren't representing a social cause, a social justice service, such as the fire department. There's a lot of different ways you could take this, but classic investor question, right? They want to see it in the pitch deck. What's the problem? What's the solution? That's how you start the tee up towards your product. You can't just say we're great. You have to say this is the problem and this is why we're great. Speaks to the market opportunity. You can also talk about how much coffee is sold at Walmart and these other retailers, how many stores there are out there, how much revenue is in the industry, what that means for you as a prospective investor if you hop on board and become a shareholder alongside us. You want to be able to talk about the team, instill trust. These founders have done this. They have successful exits. They've managed very high performing companies. They have been at these large organizations. You want them to be able to reference you by first name as if they know you. You want them to be able to speak about the team to the peers that they're marketing towards, to their friends, family, coworkers, golf buddies, and explain why they should invest and referencing you. And just a very clear, very strong call to action.
Mhm. Yeah, and while you're talking about that, I just wanted to show kind of what we mean by scannability. So this is for Rise Robotics. But as you scroll through the page, if you're just checking out, I do love how they have really strong and bold headlines. So you know exactly, what section it is, what they're talking about. Robotics powering new era of electric heavy machinery. Heavier machines are outdated, insufficient, dirty, and dangerous. So like problem, solution, electrifying heavy machines with a smarter, faster, cleaner alternative. So really, just by scrolling through the page, I haven't read any of this, standard text, but just by these headlines, I can already kind of get a sense of what they're doing, the problems they're solving, and it can definitely make a big difference. Real quick, I'll show another one, Red AI, which I thought they did a good job. Big market numbers, 70 billion, Red AI selected for Adobe Design Fund. It's making content faster and smarter with artificial intelligence. So, these are kind of just like headline graphics, right? But as you're scrolling through the page, it makes it so much easier to just really pull out the big headlines, right? The big drivers on what they're trying to communicate. So even if you're just reading these, I already kind of have an idea of what RAD does, right? And what they're doing, how they're doing it. Um, and it just helps through your page. So then, also if people are wondering, oh, what's the problem? You can find maybe the problem headline, get more into it, and, go from there.
Awesome,
Mhm.
awesome examples. Uh, the competitor marketing audit is a very important part of a strategy marketing plan that you're showing with that you're showing as part of a plan to put one of these capital raises together. So definitely should be doing what Brendan's doing. Look on sites like King's Crowd or the platform that you're on to be able to tell who those competitors are, see what's working on their page. Also, balancing copy with powerful visuals, replace paragraphs with infographics, tell the story with less words, and visuals, infographics showing market size, charts displaying user growth, icons highlighting key benefits, screenshots of products in use, customer testimonials in quote format, use consistent fonts and on-brand colors. So here's an example for Citizen Coffee and their market info. You can see their year over year growth. You can see their revenue per store. Even if you don't fully understand all the terms and numbers and what's behind them, you get the idea. This organization is growing. And 2020 to 2024, 1.9 to 7.2 million projected. That is very strong. This is from earlier this year, hence the projected actually page that was published last year. Revenue per store, you get the full breakdown. And one last example for EPI1 explanatory graphic. The EPI1 solution, MedTech, one blood draw with the PCR test for accurate cancer diagnosis, high accuracy, simple PCR test, under 10 biomarkers test, $500 per patient, 6-hour turnaround time. That could be paragraphs for each of those to explain. Instead, I'm able to look at that visual and get it. What about CTAs, Brennan?
Yeah, so it's great to have multiple CTAs through your page, especially if it's longer. You got to think if people are scrolling, 4 or 5 pages deep, showing them some sort of call to action can definitely kind of like rein them back in, remind them exactly what the purpose of the page is. On portals, typically it is harder because you'll just have your one invest button. A lot of times if you just scroll though, the invest button will move with you as you scroll on the page, so you don't have to worry about that too much. But if you're on something self-hosted, like Dealmaker, for example, you're creating your own custom page, right? So that's when it's really important, I think, to have multiple call to actions that you can space out. You can test out different headlines and things like that. And then, always bring it back into, reserve shares, join X amount of investors. You can talk about maybe some of your perks and things like that. So it definitely helps just to pull people back in, remind them, the purpose of the page and keep them on track, right? And you don't want to have other page like links on your page if you can. Like you don't necessarily want to have, tons of links to different sites or things like that as much as you can. I mean, it's great for social proof, but as much as you can think about one button, one focus, invest now.
One love, one button, one focus, one call to action, landing page best practice. Ask them one thing. Don't let them click on all the tabs of the site. You're going to get a higher conversion rate. People invest in people. Brendan, echoing you from what you mentioned earlier, make your team section impactful. Got a strong and weak example. I don't know if we're speaking about the photo here and more of a professional photo or this guy in a helmet, but strong, Sarah Chen, CEO, former VP at Uber, led 50 million product line, Stanford MBA, 2 successful exits, including Tech Corp acquired by Google for 200 million. She's done this before. Week, John has 15 years of experience in technology and is passionate about innovation. He graduated from State University and loves biking. Okay, we're seeing the difference there based on what they've demonstrated in their past that would project success in the future. You mentioned social proof earlier.
Yeah, so this is a great example of how you can really feature social proof on your page. Um, you can almost not have too many logos on your investment page for social proof. There's definitely a point where it's too many, but you can think about overloading it almost, and that overwhelm feeling will definitely show people too, like, whoa, they're working with all these different people, especially if there's some notable names like, Intel, Nvidia, things like that. People are like, oh, like I just saw something about Nvidia on the news, so that's pretty cool that they're partnering with them. So being able to create infographics like this, or even if it's just simply you're putting all the logos together, with the white background. Typically it's a white background on portals, so it'll just look like it's floating there, which is totally cool. Um, but it really does create a lot of impact, I think, for people. And, even if you don't have a ton of maybe testimonials, or, maybe you're not at the point where you're super long in your revenue journey, in your company overall, if people are seeing that you're working with all these companies, they're like, wow, they see the potential in what you're doing, I should probably see it too, right? And that definitely helps when you're getting these strategic partnerships. It makes an effort and it does push you to the next level. Like Jason was saying, how are you going to stand out against hundreds of other raise pages, if you can show, that you're working with industry leaders or that you just got a new partnership, it can make all the difference, right? Especially if it's, there's a direct competitor that's raising. You being able to show that you're making, big moves helps a lot in the long run.
Absolutely. Adding to the crowd effect, adding trustability, check, check. Simplified, complex information, graphene materials versus LTDF flakes. Avadane, LTDF flakes. You can see this gets pretty technical. If retail investors can't understand what you do, they won't invest. Take your most complex product feature and explain it to a 12-year-old. That's your investor-friendly version. Our patented technology produces large, thin, defect-free graphene that delivers on the Wonder Materials promise. Wonder Material. Backed by Panasonic. Just learn about why that matters. Federally validated and protected by patents in 40 countries, we can capture a $100 billion market, transforming 45 plus industries. This is an issuer that raised $5 million in 43 days on a Reg CF. We went over the SkinBit example earlier. We saw a thumbnail of their video, engage your audience, customer engagement strategies, regular investor updates and milestone celebrations, active communication in comments and QA sections, behind the scenes content that builds personal connection. So we have an example here from the CEO of SkinBit, one of the top Reg CF campaigns live as we speak. Half of Americans who need skin cancer screening can't get it. As someone who survived melanoma, I couldn't ignore a problem that's this big with a solution this clear. So you could see some of the ways Jonathan has been engaging his audience, the questions on his WeFunder page. Hi, will you please compare radiation levels, if any, to X-rays or CT or PET and SPECT scans? Thanks. Very good answer here. What initial investment might we need to develop and implement this idea? Breaks it all down with the 2.5 million. Brendan, I know we only got a minute or two left. You want to go through this last Mode Mobile example, or these three briefly and we'll get to the key takeaways before we wrap?
Yeah, sure. Real quick. So, Mode Mobile, here I can share the pages real quick just as I talk about them. But something that they do great job, they are self-hosted. So, you know, so they do are able to create their own custom page, right? What they do, I mean, immediately above the fold, you can see their video, headline. Of course, this has changed. I think they're closed right now, but immediately tons of logos for social proof, um, top reasons to invest. So they did a really good job of laying everything out. You can quickly see some of their biggest accomplishments, even just this section here. I think is a great example that people can look at and be like, okay, these are the kinds of things we're looking for. Talking about the problem, everything is kind of turned into an infographic almost, right? Even though it's a custom page. So I think that was really strong on how they were able to accomplish that. I'll just show quickly another one here. We got Energy X. They're one of the top races of all time, I think. In total raise, I believe. But they do a great job in interacting with their audience. Again, tons of social proof here, top reasons to invest, really clear and easy to see exactly their main accomplishments, some quotes, which I think are awesome here, some social proof from global leaders, and just looks like a well put together page. They definitely put some effort into it. Like I said, it's not just something where they're putting their pitch deck up on their site, right? They definitely had some more thoughts and time and dedication into how things look, right? This page definitely makes you feel like, okay, this company has gone somewhere and they've been doing something. Um, I know that we're running short on time, so I don't want to take up too much time, so we can get over to the key takeaways, which I can start going over. So the essentials. Your page must sell when you can't be there personally, right? So you aren't obviously always going to be sending people the link yourself, right? And it needs to be something where anyone can come to the page, they know what you do, and they can get interested and make that conversion in the future. Visual storytelling beats text walls every time. Nobody wants to read through paragraphs and paragraphs of just text. At the bare minimum, if you can, create some headlines with some copy, some graphics so that things can get broken up. But it's great if you can visualize things more throughout the page. Social proof is your credibility shortcut. We've mentioned it time and time again. You can't have enough. Mobile optimization isn't optimal. Definitely depends on the platform, but regardless, before you go live, take a look at it on your phone. Majority of people are going to be on their phone anyways, especially if they're clicking through from some sort of ad. So just double check it there, make sure everything looks big enough, and then test, measure, and iterate constantly. So you can't always change your page. You'll have to talk with your legal counsel to make sure that everything's okay. But test and see what's working out. If you're getting really good front-end metrics, so the click-through rates and everything on your ads or other traffic sources, but your page isn't converting, maybe check out what's going on with the page. It could be something with the page where, maybe above the fold, people just aren't getting it, right? So maybe figure out some ways, talk to your current investors and see what they say, right? You definitely want feedback from as much people as you can.
And I can't tell you how many founders don't do that. So really want to highlight everything that Brendan left us with the key takeaways, continuing the conversation, get in touch with us. Brendan's happy to hop on a call with you. I'm happy to hop on. We offer free campaign audits. We'll review your current strategy and provide specific recommendations to drive investors to your offering, as well as to get a higher conversion rate from those prospects, both from how you're presenting on that page, as well as the content marketing off page. Content and media alignment assessment, performance benchmark comparison, 30-minute strategy session. We enjoy these chats. There's no reason why any issuer should not look to have these types of conversations with marketing agencies who have worked on hundreds of campaigns in this space, even if it's just to learn how they're seeing these things from their experience. I highly recommend it, not just with us, but every group in the space. So, Brendan, thank you so much for taking the time away from the creative studio to be able to educate everyone here on the webinar.
Yeah, of course. If you want to reach out, if you have any questions, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to set up a quick call or, discuss what you're doing on the creative side.
Awesome. Awesome.
Mhm.
You're a champ. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you next month. Take care.